They laughed before he even finished his first sentence. It wasn't loud laughter, not the kind that echoes or calls attention to itself. It was worse than that. It was the polite, polished chuckle of people who believed themselves above cruelty. The kind that lived behind pressed suits, neutral makeup, and the illusion of professionalism. It slipped through the studio like a draft, subtle but unmistakable. Arjun Patel felt it immediately. The red light on the BBC camera blinked on, and he sat straighter in his chair, palms pressed together just out of frame. He had rehearsed this moment for weeks. In front of the bathroom mirror. On the bus. In the quiet corners of the university library where no one could hear him repeat the same opening line over and over until it sounded confident enough to belong on national television. "Good evening," he began, voice steady, vowels rounded by years of growing up in Leicester in a household that spoke Gujarati at home and English everywhere else. "Thank you for having me." That was when it happened. One of the panelists, a man with silver hair and the relaxed posture of someone who had never worried about belonging, tilted his head slightly. Another woman smiled too quickly, lips pressed together as if she were holding something back. Someone off camera snorted, then tried to disguise it as a cough. Arjun didn't stop speaking. He talked about artificial intelligence ethics, about algorithmic bias and the invisible ways technology replicated human prejudice. He spoke clearly, thoughtfully, passionately. But something had shifted in the room. His words were no longer landing on neutral ground. They were being filtered through the sound of his voice. When he said data, it came out data, not data. When he said privacy, the rhythm of the word bent just slightly, shaped by a lifetime of code switching that never fully erased itself. To Arjun, it was just his voice. To them, it was entertainment. Halfway through the segment, the host interrupted him. "Sorry, Arjun," she said, smiling brightly. "Just to clarify, for our viewers, are you saying the algorithm learns bias from us?" There was nothing wrong with the question. But the way she leaned in, the exaggerated slowness of her words, made something twist in his chest. "Yes," he replied. "That's exactly what I'm saying." The clip ended 3 minutes later. The cameras shut off. The panelists thanked him politely. No one mentioned the laughter. Arjun left the studio with his backpack slung over one shoulder and the familiar, sinking feeling that followed him out into the London night. He told himself he was imagining it. That he was being sensitive. That this was the cost of visibility. By the time he reached his small rented room, his phone was buzzing. At first, it was friends. "Mate, you smashed it. So proud of you. BBC looks good on you." Then came the others. Someone had clipped a 10-second moment from the broadcast, the exact second when the laughter slipped through, and posted it on X with a caption that read, "BBC experts struggling to understand his accent." The replies were immediate. Some were cruel. "Learn English before going on TV. Why do they let anyone on these days? I can't even understand him." Arjun stared at the screen until the words blurred. He'd seen this before, of course. Online comment sections were rarely kind. Still, seeing his face attached to the mockery felt different. More personal. More permanent. He put the phone down and sat on the edge of his bed, listening to the hum of traffic outside. He thought of his parents, who still spoke with thicker accents than his own and never once apologized for it. He thought of the hours he'd spent trying to smooth himself into something more acceptable. By morning, the clip had exploded. But something unexpected happened alongside the hate. A woman named Priya, a journalist based in Manchester, quote-tweeted the clip with a simple line, "They're laughing at his accent, not his ideas. And that tells you everything." Her tweet went viral. Then others joined in. A linguistics professor posted a thread explaining how accents had nothing to do with intelligence, breaking down the colonial history of standard English and who it was designed to exclude. A black British actor shared his own story of being told to sound less urban for auditions. A Welsh news anchor uploaded a video speaking proudly in his natural accent, ending with, "This is what English sounds like too." The internet, so often a weapon, became something else entirely. People began sharing clips of themselves speaking, Indian accents, Nigerian accents, Jamaican accents, regional British accents that had been mocked for decades. Each video ended the same way. "This is my voice. This is English. I won't apologize." The hashtag started small, #MyAccentMyVoice. By lunchtime, it was trending worldwide. Arjun watched it unfold in disbelief. He refreshed his feed over and over, heart racing. Messages flooded his inbox from strangers. "Thank you for speaking. My son sounds like you. He needed to see this." I've been hiding my accent for years. He replied to none of them at first. He didn't know how. Gratitude felt heavy when it arrived all at once. The BBC released a statement that afternoon. They said they were reviewing the segment and committed to diversity and inclusion. They did not mention laughter. They did not apologize to Arjun by name. The internet noticed. Pressure mounted. Media watchdogs picked up the story. Opinion pieces appeared questioning who was considered an acceptable voice in British media. Clips from older broadcasts resurfaced, regional accents mocked, immigrants interrupted, expertise questioned because of how it sounded. By the second day, the BBC asked Arjun if he would like to return for a follow-up interview. He hesitated. Part of him wanted to say no. To protect himself. To let the moment pass. But another part, the one that had kept speaking through the laughter, knew this wasn't just about him anymore. He agreed. This time, when he sat under the studio lights, there was no laughter. The host addressed the controversy directly. She apologized, visibly, explicitly. She used his name. She acknowledged the harm. Arjun spoke again about algorithms and bias. But he also spoke about language. About growing up translating for his parents. About being told his voice was something to fix. About how exhausting it was to constantly perform acceptability. His accent didn't change. If anything, it grew stronger. After the broadcast, the clip circulated again. But this time, it carried a different energy. People watched it with intention. With context. With respect. Schools used it in media literacy classes. Universities invited him to speak. Podcasts reached out. He said yes to some, no to others, learning for the first time that boundaries were not weakness. Months later, the hashtag still resurfaced now and then, revived by someone new finding their courage. Arjun returned to his quiet routines, coding, teaching, long walks through the city. The noise faded, but something inside him had shifted permanently. He no longer softened his vowels in meetings. He no longer rehearsed his introductions. He no longer apologized before speaking. Once, late at night, he re-watched the original clip, the laughter, the interruption, the moment that had ignited everything. It still hurt. Maybe it always would. But now, layered over it, he could hear something louder. Millions of voices. Unedited. Unashamed. And for the first time, his own voice felt like it belonged among them. Years later, that clip was still taught in journalism schools, not as a scandal, but as a turning point. Arjun never became famous in the way the internet once tried to make him, and he was grateful for that. What stayed was quieter and stronger, a generation a little less afraid to speak as they were. Somewhere, someone turned on a microphone, opened their mouth, and didn't change their voice first. He kept walking, letting the night swallow the moment, unaware that the clip he wanted to forget had already found its way into millions of hands, and that by morning, the laughter would no longer be the loudest sound in the story. He didn't know it yet, but the silence he carried home was about to be broken. Somewhere online, strangers were pressing play, pausing, rewinding, and deciding that this time, they wouldn't laugh.